Hey everyone, it's Jackson, and I want to do something a little bit different today and share with you the five best financial decisions that I've ever made in my life. I think there's a lot to be learned from other people's experience, and so I hope through hearing my financial experiences, it will give you ideas of how you can progress in your own financial life. I also think there's a lot to be learned from financial mistakes and I'm considering doing a part two to this video where I share the five worst financial decisions I've ever made. So, if that's a video that you'd be interested in watching or listening to, make sure to drop a comment below and I'll prioritize that over other videos that I'm making as well. Coming in at number five is taking a commission only sales job when I was 20 years old. For a little bit of context, I was in my freshman year of college and I was broke. I ran out of money. I didn't have enough for school. I had actually borrowed from my parents to pay for my freshman year of school. And then my dad lost his job. So my dad was out of work and I felt really guilty asking my parents for money again. And I wasn't really sure what to do. There were a few internship opportunities for freshmen, but not a lot. And so I quickly realized that where I could make the most money was by working in sales since they didn't require a degree or any previous experience. So I ended up taking this job selling door to door pest control. And I remember I had like $800 to my name. I was living in Utah at the time. I paid like $120 for this Greyhound bus ticket because I also didn't have a car. And it took me out to Idaho, this place I'd never been to before in my life. And there was this sales manager that was just waiting for me that was supposed to meet me there. So I just show up at this bus station in Idaho and he picks me up. And so I bought my bus ticket. And then I also bought a mattress and I was just sleeping on a mattress on the floor of our sales office. And I had like just enough money to last me for probably about a month's worth of groceries and I was taking this job that was 100% commission. So if I didn't sell anything, I wasn't going to make any money and I was going to be in a really bad situation, kind of stuck in Idaho, way far away from my family and any sort of support. And wow, that was really like a proving moment for me where I was young and I took a bet on myself and I kind of had like no option except to be successful. And thankfully, things ended up working out really well. I made more sales than I expected. I had a really good summer. There were lots of people that were very kind and generous and helped me along the way. And I ended up doing that job for 3 years. And to this day, it's one of the best financial decisions that I've ever made. It was very lucrative. It helped set me up for success early in my career. It helped me graduate college debt free. It helped me have savings so that I could get married and pay for a wedding and honeymoon. And it also helped me make a down payment on my first house. So it was pretty incredible. And it really gave me a springboard into the next stage of my life. And when I think back on that experience, the reason why it's in my top five is not just because it ended up being a good financial decision, but because it fundamentally changed the way that I thought about money and my career in general. I came from a family where my father always worked for someone else. He was always a W 2 employee his whole career, and nothing wrong with that. We had a great living, and he always provided for us very well. But I had just kind of assumed that I would always spend my life working for someone else and working in a traditional job. And this sales job really just shattered that frame for me. I realized for the first time that I could bet on myself and I could do things outside of the norm and I could try new things and do things differently. And taking some of those risks could lead to financial payouts for me. And so it was a really exciting time of life. And I think it really springboarded me into thinking more about entrepreneurship. I don't think I ever would have started my own financial coaching business if it hadn't been for that experience in door to door sales. So, the lesson for you on this one is be willing to bet on yourself, especially early in your career. Take a risk and just see how it plays out. And even if it fails, you'll probably be okay and learn a lot from the experience. So, it's worth taking those financial risks. Number four is setting up and contributing to a Roth IRA. I was 20 to 21 years old when I first got really interested in investing. This was around the time that I was doing that door to door sales job. And I also had a wealthy uncle that I was asking lots of questions to about investing and how to get started. And my dad as well was really helpful. We actually had a family challenge where he opened up an investment account for me and each of my siblings, and we had a family competition to see who could get the best returns in their investing account. And so all of this kind of sparked my interest about the power of investing. And I decided to open up a Roth IRA. I was about 21, and I set a goal for myself to max out my contribution to that Roth IRA every single year, which I've done for the last 7 years in a row. And it's really just been an incredible way for me to get exposed to the stock market and experience some tax free growth. It's been a real tool for building wealth and for exposing me to the power of investing. That account crossed $100,000 last year for the balance, which was a really exciting milestone for me to see myself hitting six figures in an investing account that's going to be tax free money for the rest of my life. And that will easily provide me with over $1 million of investments by the time I retire. And so it's just, if you can get started early with something like a Roth IRA, it's going to really help accelerate your financial progress because you have the power of compounding on your side, and it's just going to continue to grow. And it's really exciting to see that happen. I remember it took a while to get there, though. When I first opened the account, it was just like so slow. It felt like the balance wasn't changing at all. And I would check it and like wait a few months and look again, and the balance just felt like it was exactly the same where it was. But once I had a few years of contributions into that account, is when I started to notice some of that growth happening and really accelerating. And it just got me really excited about the power of investing and creating passive income for myself. Number three is staying out of consumer debt. And there's all sorts of arguments, the rich dad, poor dad versus Dave Ramsey approach when it comes to debt. I don't think that debt is a bad thing in a business scenario where maybe you're taking out a loan to produce more than you would be able to otherwise. But from a consumer perspective, meaning, buying cars or other things that might be stretching me beyond my limit, I feel very strongly that it's important to be debt free. I have had a little bit of consumer debt in my life. When I bought my first car, I paid for half of it in cash, and then the other half I borrowed from my parents. They were kind enough to help me out and help me buy my first car. And then about 6 months later, once I had some more paychecks come through, I was able to pay off the rest of the balance to them and own my car outright, which was a really good feeling. Other than that, I do have a mortgage on a property that I own, but it's a rental property, and I'm not really concerned with paying the mortgage off at this point. One thing that I'll say about becoming debt free is that it just gives you so many more options in your life. I feel like it takes some of the fear away from making big financial decisions. It's easier to take risks on myself because I know that I have a safety net and I'm not going to overextend myself beyond what I can afford. And I think it's especially important to have this boundary with myself because I am someone that gets excited by shiny objects and I like to spend money. And so reminding myself not to go into consumer debt actually helps me make better decisions and avoid financial decisions that might set me back in the long run. I think it's a really good principle for anyone to follow. And also, I want you to know it's 100% possible. So if you're someone that has some debt right now that you're working on paying off, you can 100% get there. I've seen so many success stories of people that were deeply in credit card debt or other circumstances that were really challenging and were able to dig their way out of it. So, if that's something that you want some guidance with, I help people with debt payoff strategy all the time in my one on one financial coaching practice. So, feel free to reach out to me. There's a link in the description below this video where you can schedule a free consultation and I can give you some guidance and direction if you're working on paying off debt. Number two is paying tithing and contributing to charity. It's interesting because if you think about it from a surface level, you might expect tithing to set yourself back financially. It's almost like this, it can feel like this permanent handicap where for the rest of your life, you have to live on 90% of your income instead of 100%. But I've actually experienced some really amazing blessings and circumstances in my life that have reinforced my belief that having that practice of giving back to my church or my community is something I want to continue doing and I want to continue prioritizing throughout my life. I'll share one experience with you that happened when I was 17 years old. So at this time, I was interested in going on a mission trip for my church. And the way we do it in our church is it's a 2 year full time mission trip. A lot of times you're halfway across the globe, separated from family, and it's a pretty big deal. And so, in preparation for this, I enrolled in something called a missionary prep class. And so I would go to this class every Sunday afternoon and they would teach us and help us prepare to become missionaries. And I developed a deep love and respect for my missionary prep teacher. He's someone that really earned my trust and got me more excited about religion in a time when I was trying to figure things out as a teenager and got me more excited about sharing my faith. And one day I show up to this mission prep class and my teacher stands up and he says that there's been a disaster in his family. He has a son that was hiking in the Himalayas on kind of an adventure trip, and there was an earthquake and his son disappeared and they didn't know where he was. They didn't know what happened to him. And because of my love for this teacher, I felt very concerned for his son and I wanted to be able to do something to help him. At this time, I was working at Chick-fil-A. I didn't have a lot of money, but I did have a little bit of resources. I probably had about $1,500 at this point in my life. In our church, we have a humanitarian aid fund where you can donate, and it goes to projects of helping people with disaster relief scenarios across the globe. And so I decided that the best way I could help my teacher and do my part and make a contribution was by contributing to this humanitarian aid fund that was available. And so I, as a 17-year-old, contributed $500 to that humanitarian effort. And it was a lot of money. It was probably about 33% of the money that I had to my name at that time. But I just felt moved in my heart, moved by the Spirit, that there was something that I should do. And what's crazy is about a month or two later, I was graduating from high school. And right before I graduate, I was on the swim team in high school, and there was like a swim team, a booster club meeting to celebrate all of the high school seniors that were graduating from the swim team. And I went to this celebration, and by complete surprise, they gave me a college scholarship of exactly $500. And it was just totally out of the blue. It wasn't something I was expecting. I didn't even know the scholarship existed. They just picked one of the seniors and decided to give it to them. And it happened to be me. And it happened to be the exact same amount of money that I had just donated to this humanitarian fund. And I'm not really someone that believes in coincidences. I believe that God has a plan for each and every one of us. And for me, that was a moment where it felt like God was speaking to me and saying, I'm really proud of you. I recognize the sacrifice that you made, and I want to show you that I'm here and that I see you and that I'm going to bless you for doing the right thing. And it was just a cool experience that set the tone for the rest of my life. And I haven't done a perfect job of it, but I've tried to seek out people in need and contribute to my church and pay tithing and do all of these things that help me to stay humble, that help me to bless other people. And it's hard to put a number impact on that, but I truly believe it's one of the best financial decisions that I've ever made. Coming in at number one is combining my finances with my wife. When my wife and I got married, um, there were a lot of people around me that had recently been divorced. I had friends that had gotten married and then 6 months or a year later gotten divorced. I had family members that had gone through the same scenario. And my wife and I were both relatively young. We were both 24 when we got married. We had both just graduated from college and we had Still a lot of things to figure out in life, like where we were going to live, what our careers were going to look like. I had a real fear that maybe something would happen to my marriage that it wouldn't go the way I expected. And I think that was mostly because I had seen a lot of examples around me of marriages that had gone wrong and in pretty catastrophic ways very early on in the marriage. And so when I thought about how to manage our finances in marriage, it kind of maybe brought up some of these fears that something would happen where we wouldn't end up together, or just maybe like a little bit of a hesitancy to really commit to going all in on merging our finances together. My wife and I also came from different financial backgrounds, and so we had very different financial circumstances on paper when we were getting married. There's a lot of advice out there nowadays that if you have different financial circumstances, you should sign a prenuptial agreement, meaning any of the assets or resources that you have before you get married, you get to keep full ownership over that. And ultimately, I decided that that approach of trying to keep our finances separate just wasn't the best way to build a secure marriage. And so my wife and I decided that we were just going to go all in and put everything together and just completely run our financial lives together. So we opened up a joint checking account and we basically transferred all of our money into that account. And then we started doing things together. And I've never regretted that decision. I think it's one of the best, I think it is the number one best financial decision that I've ever made. My wife has been an incredible support to me throughout our marriage. And I really feel that by making that commitment of combining our finances, it added an additional layer of stability and security and commitment to our relationship that we would not have been able to achieve the same way if we had kept our finances separate. I am definitely more of the money guy in our relationship. I'm more interested in personal finance than my wife is. Obviously, it'd probably be pretty hard to beat me in terms of my level of interest in that. But she's been an incredible support, and we always make big financial decisions together. We always sit down and counsel together. We meet once a month to go through our finances together, to talk about our income, to talk about our expenses, to talk about our investments and our net worth. And it's just been an incredible practice that we've had that has brought me a lot of happiness and security and satisfaction in my marriage. It's been truly an incredible feeling. I've worked with a lot of couples that have had their finances separate, and I've worked with a lot of couples that have joined their finances together. And the ones that join their finances together are definitely more likely to see financial success as a family. There's just so much evidence in my mind that it is the winning formula for 99% of couples out there. So if that's something that you've considered in your own relationship of maybe merging your finances with your spouse, I would highly recommend it. And if you have any questions about how to do so, you're more than welcome to reach out to me and I'd be happy to answer them for you. So that's my top five. I'm still relatively early in my career, so I still have lots to learn. And I'm sure that my top five might evolve over time as I continue to make big financial decisions in my life. But I think the principles stay the same. There's really some underlying things that have helped me find financial success. And that comes down to being willing to take a risk and bet on myself, investing early and investing often so that I can have the power of compounding on my side to create passive income, involving God in my finances and seeking to be generous rather than selfish is definitely a practice that has blessed me and helped me to stay grounded. Staying free of consumer debt and living within my means. And then, of course, not doing things on my own, asking for help, and working together as a team with my wife. I hope you learned something from this video, and I hope it inspires you to maybe approach your own finances a little bit differently and continue to see success in your own life. If you want to hear the 5 worst financial decisions that I've ever made, drop a comment below this video, let me know, and I'll make that video as well. Thanks so much for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe to Money with Jackson on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I have lots of upcoming videos planned that I'm excited to share. So if you like this video, drop a like, drop a subscribe, and thanks for watching.